Welcome to Tya Talk. I am here with Tya Bootcamp graduate David Rude, and probably one of the people that asks the deepest questions of the stream. So we need to have you back on. We're not channeling today, but
Right.
have you back on a stream session sometime really, really soon. But you always bring really good information from the stream, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here.
So, what's your topic of the day for Tya?
So actually, it was from on the Sunday Soul Foods. I was asking a bunch of questions, and the stream. Well, they actually are a couple some interesting stuff they threw out there, but one that was they were really emphatic to say that like when you're talking about like a desired manifestation, you're really better off to like not repeatedly ask for it because that's essentially engaging the energy of need or lack in it, which makes sense to me. So they're basically saying you just that's why they say set it and forget it.
Yeah.
But and I but I didn't pursue this more in my questioning. I kind of wish I had, because they also talk about sort of getting into the isness of a thing and or of a desired manifestation, which to me implies a bit of a I guess not a repeated attention
Yeah,
sustained
and
attention.
it's a really good observation because it gets a little confusing.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm supposed to be in the isness of something, but I'm not supposed to revisit it all the time. The
right.
reason they guide us not to revisit things all the time is because we are liable if our focus is I want this thing and I need to meditate on it every day, then we're liable to meditate in different points of vibration. And
Okay.
we know that when we're at the top of our vibrational spiral, believing and trusting is easy because we're in that source space of not needing, right?
Okay.
It's more of a I call that the wouldn't it be nice vibration.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to experience or have or be or do whatever it is, and leaving it at that? Because when you start thinking that you've got to meditate something into being, then you are going to be at different vibrational set points when you do that, most likely. So you think one day and you think very, very positively because you're really up your spiral, and then the next day, you've set a reminder for yourself or something like that, oh, I need to go meditate on
Right.
this new job that I want or whatever it is, and you're not in the same vibrational space. And when you're not in the same vibrational space, you are a different being.
Yeah.
When you are operating in lower vibration, I have likened it to being intoxicated. If you drink, you know what I mean by when you drink a little bit, you start behaving differently. But in your mind, you're not thinking, well, gosh, I'm drunk right now and I'm acting like a fool, or I'm acting, a little off, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But you get some feedback from some people around you that maybe, oh, you've had a little too much to drink, or how much have you had, or something like that, and it kind of cues you that, okay, I'm not as together as I think I am right now. And vibration, that is a vibrational state of being. The alcohol has just altered your vibration to take you to that space. Well, we're on this vibrational journey, no matter what we're consuming. So we're at this different vibrational set point, and we're not as trusting and believing in those lower vibrational states. Now, stepping into the isness of something is that high vibration of just trusting and believing without picking up the hammer.
Okay.
So I think if you want to draw a real black and white, and I love that in the stream is pretty black and white about stuff, but vibration really isn't black and white. Vibration is gray, right? So if you want to get more black and white about it, so you know that this is what I should be doing and this is what I shouldn't be doing, think of the isness in terms of you can bring yourself to that state of isness and make that what we call a vibrational set point. Like I am this thing already, and the physical reality of it is just going to catch up to me, and enjoy that.
Yeah.
Just don't get into that I need to do this every day,
Right.
because that I need to do it every day thing is where the hammering comes in. And
Right.
that's where we get ourselves into trouble, thinking that we at 9 a.m. every day, I'm going to be in the right vibrational space to be in the isness of this new job that I want,
Right.
because you're not. You're going to be at different vibrational set points. So the isness is just more setting and forgetting and believing and trusting, and maybe reveling in that feeling when you're up there. And in the Taya practice, especially once you've gone through boot camp, you become keenly aware of where you are vibrationally, And that ultimately starts delivering the tools so that you know what to do when you're up and what not to do when you're down.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't want to pick up the hammer in that low vibration of need, because that's going to be a whole different message that you are broadcasting to the universe. Well, oh, I've got to be in the business of this. I need to
Yeah.
think about it right now. I need to imagine myself in that job. Well,
Yeah.
no, that's the vibration that you're broadcasting, is it's not here.
Right.
So I would reserve the isness for those high vibrational
Right.
times, and
Yeah.
allow and understand that that vibration exists. It's up here, and you've created it, and the isness exists up there, but you may not be in that
Right.
space. You may be
Right.
operating down here, and the isness of this thing that you want, this new job in this example that you want, is up here.
Yeah.
So think about it in terms of that. It already exists. It's up there. That frequency is running up in higher vibrational belief territory. And when I'm up there and I think about it, I'm going to daydream about this a little bit and be in the isness of it and just revel in that energy of having the thing that I want and having it all work out with ease, and not going any further than that. That is the isness. But when I'm down here and I try to make myself, by appointment, be in the isness of something, then that doesn't work so well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I've got definitely, since I've done the boot camp, I've definitely gotten better with, yeah, being more aware of where I am vibrationally. And then when I'm a bit down, if it's not quite working, or if I'm not necessarily DTS, I'm just kind of a bit, like that, which I guess is DTS, but to not start thinking about important things. It's kind of like, they have the medication. They say don't operate heavy machinery when you're under the influence of this medicine. It's sort of like when you're a little down, don't start,
Yeah, you have no business driving a car when you're intoxicated. You have no
Right,
business
right. Yeah,
trying to be in the isness of something when you're below neutral. We know what below
yeah,
neutral is. You're no longer in that zone of trust. Zero or higher. Yes, you can trust. You've got more source flowing than ego. But when
yeah,
you get below zero, you've got more ego flowing than source, and your ego is really liable to be the tripwire of, well, how's that going to work out?
yeah,
When's that coming? Why isn't it here yet? What are you doing wrong? All of those little things. And then, of course, you can just spiral on down to, oh, this stuff doesn't work. This is
yeah,
impossible. I'll never get this. People like me never, and all those little things that we do on that roller coaster down our spiral. You have no business doing that. You can if you want to. That will be your experience. But
yeah.
if you're desiring to manifest the things that you are preferring, then you want to revisit that stuff when you're above neutral, for
Right.
sure.
So I was kind of wondering if maybe you can revisit these things as much as you want, as long as it's with the energy of enjoying the
Yeah, if you're
vibration.
daydreaming and enjoying and reveling, and that the
Yeah.
ego sense doesn't creep in, well, how's that
Right.
going to work?
Right.
When's that going to happen?
Right.
That didn't work last time, or remember that time that you suffered in something happening or not happening. Do you really want to go there again and desire that again? That sort of thing. Your ego does that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, John. Hi, John Fiore. Good to see you on here. Emotional energy. Yeah, that vibration. If you all haven't taken our numeric vibrational training, it's available on YouTube. You can go on YouTube. It's the numeric vibrational spiral. And I keep saying I'm going to do an update because I have a new graphic, and the new graphic shows like ego, source, and how both are present all the time when we're in physical. But as you go down your spiral, you're operating more in ego, and source becomes more overshadowed. And as
Right.
you go up your spiral, your ego becomes diminished, and your source being, which is your creative being, becomes more in the driver's seat, so to speak.
Yeah.
So John says, "Hi, David. Hi, David." I'm assuming he's not repeating himself. He's like saying hi to both of us individually.
That's I was in a low brass section the other week where everybody's name started with a D. It was kind of
Oh,
a
that's
coincidence.
funny.
It was the first time in my life I've ever been in a section where everyone's name started with the same letter. you know. So
That's funny. That's funny.
yeah,
And how many Davids? There's always lots of Davids, right?
yeah, really. So
Gosh, when I was growing up, in the '60s, everybody was either David or Michael.
oh really? Okay.
And you sit in school, and there'd be like five Davids and five Michaels in every class.
Right. Right. I kind of love. Yeah, yeah.
So if you're watching us live, and I see there's lots of you watching us live right now, if you have questions around the Tya practice or just general law of attraction, law of attraction questions, go ahead and type those in now. David is a graduate of our Tya Bootcamp program, and that's a program that we created about 4 years ago. It's a mindset practice that aligns you with universal law, and it's stripped. It's as stripped of ego as we can get it. It's as stripped of humanity in the matrix as we can get it. There's no judgment. There's no fear. There's no rules. There's no right or wrong way to operate your life. There's nothing right or wrong that you want to experience. And it's very much about operating your life in harmony with universal law so that you are able to find joy no matter where you are in your vibrational journey, and find joy, clarity, and ultimately abundance in your now, by appreciating your now and really detuning the transgressors in your belief system that drag your vibration down and actually create all of the problems in your life. It doesn't solve every problem, but it certainly makes solving them more interesting and fun, because you know how creation occurs and you know how to operate your life in harmony with that, even though we're not here for perfection. It's not about being a billionaire or necessarily, or living some Instagram version of life. We're not about that, but it is about bringing a lot more joy into your life and detuning. The big thing is detuning your life's transgressors, because that's the stuff that's really holding you down. That's the stuff that's really creating your suffering in your life. If you're suffering at all, it's because you've got these judgments that you've created, really rooted in your transgressors. And when you start detuning transgressors, those judgments fall away and you just become a lot happier. And then the abundance follows happy. How's your abundance going, David?
Good. Yeah, good. I just got back from United Kingdom about a week ago. It went well. Had a great time. It was a busy week. Had a lot of recording and symphonic programs, so it was busy. So I'm kind of now catching up on my sleep, which is good. I had a program up in Columbus, a Holiday Pops program in Columbus, Ohio, this last weekend, and now I've got Mendelssohn 5 with a different orchestra. So I got like a couple more programs this season. But it's
David's an orchestra
yeah,
musician.
yes,
And,
yes, the trombone back there.
and somebody asked about the channel, the YouTube channel. All of our stuff is the Stream of David. So if you go to YouTube and search the Stream of David, we have lots and lots of videos on there. Lots of these Tya Talks, live channeling that I do. Um, you can find the numeric spiral training, I think that's what it's called, on our YouTube channel. And so do take that, because just starting to understand the vibrational spiral and assigning, and we take it and simplify it. We certainly didn't invent the vibrational spiral. That's been around for a long, long time. But a lot of these spirals are really complex. There'll be like 75 different emotions listed there. And for me, and for most of the people that practice Tya, we find it more beneficial to simplify things and kind of bring it down to just a handful of emotions within an emotional range, so that you really can be aware of where you are emotionally in your moment, in your day, your week, and in your life. Because your emotions are just a reflection of your vibration, and your vibration is what's creating your reality. And we get really deep into that in the teachings. So if you're new to us and new to the teachings, the Stream of David is the channel. It's also the podcast. And there is a wealth of information on both of those things, the podcast and the YouTube channel. And we have a Facebook group. We've been kind of quiet this year. I've taken a big break from social media this year, but I'm promising I'm going to be back on social media in 2023. And so the Facebook group, the Tya Practice Facebook group, the Tya Practice group is a great place. There's a wealth of information in there as well. The Tya Practice is a mindset practice that I created based on the channeling that I do from what we call the stream, which is just essentially source. Again, I simplify everything. To me, it's all source. And they have delivered a mindset practice with 4 pillars that are very easy to follow. And when you follow them consistently, your life gets consistently better. And we have lots of people practicing and lots of evidence of that, if you will, because it's a challenge to change your vibration. And there's work involved. And hopefully it's rewarding work. When you start seeing the results of your work show up, you can see results immediately. But raising your vibration systematically is a journey.
Mhm.
And I just guide everybody that's on that journey to enjoy the journey. Don't think of a threshold that you've got to cross, that when I manifest the perfect body or the perfect job or the perfect partner or the whatever it is, that you'll finally be happy. That becomes this marker that just chases, you're just chasing it all the time. We find that learning to make peace with and find the joy in the now is so very powerful, because then you really are opening yourself up to the universe delivering more. What's
Yeah.
your thoughts or opinion on that, David?
Um, yeah, it's been great. The last, let's see, when did I finish the modules? It was in June. Yeah, actually, I just had a recent manifestation that just sort of fell in my lap. Again, that's why I mentioned at in the event about why does stuff show up when I forgot about it? And there was a musical instrument that I was meaning to purchase. That's a very kind of a rare, unique thing that I had hit on my radar for a while, and I thought I would love to have one of these. It's a bass trumpet. It's used as some specialty kind of a handful of pieces. But anyway, just about an email about a week ago, somebody emailed me and said, "Hey, I've got one. I'm wanting to get rid of. Would you like to buy it?" And I've just mailed the check off yesterday. So, um, but but going back to like, so that's a manifestation that just kind of fell in my lap. And I noticed like I'll kind of like be kind of setting an intention about it or meditating about it. But the thing is, I never really was super deliberate about this. Um, I was never like, it wasn't like a major goal or anything.
You were in the wouldn't it be nice, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it
And
be
then I
nice?
forgot about it. And a couple weeks went
Yeah.
by and I was like, and then suddenly I got this email. I was like, oh, that's weird, and I thought, oh, because normally these things are actually really expensive. They're like, to get one, a good one from a maker in Germany is going to cost you like 10,000 euros or something. It's like a small car, and so when the guy said, oh, he just said, I've got a 4-valve rotary Alexander, and I was like, okay, well, tell me what the price is. I'm thinking
A
is going
four
to
valve
be,
rotary sounds like a car. That's funny.
yeah, I know, yeah.
I know a lot more
And,
about cars than I do musical instruments. So yeah.
when he sent me the picture, it was actually exactly kind of what and the price that I had sort of envisioned was a fair price. And it was actually all very, I saw it and I thought, oh, that's kind of uncannily like what I had sort of pictured.
Yeah, the setting it and forgetting it is so very powerful.
Yeah.
I haven't. I keep saying I need to do a new vision board. I haven't done a vision board in a long, long time, and I did one years ago, and it was on my phone. It was the like a collage on my phone instead of putting it actually on my wall.
Yeah.
And I manifested everything on the vision board, but I didn't try to manifest everything on the
Yeah.
vision board.
Yeah.
It was a set it and forget it. I've had that experience. I had one thing, a list of things in my wallet one year that I forgot about. I found it like a year later cleaning out my wallet,
Right.
and it was this little list of things, these goals that I'd set for like more than a year prior. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, every one of those things came true. And I didn't pull that out every day and meditate on it or affirm it or any of that stuff. I made my work detuning
Yeah.
transgressors, loving myself more unconditionally, and finding joy in my everyday. And when you do that, then you get yourself into that joyful space of no longer needing the stuff that you think is going to make you happy.
Right.
And then it just starts to flow in. And it can be very precise. You're right, because I manifested when I moved to Palm Springs, I had on my vision board a picture of it was a mid-century modern house with this really elaborate backyard with a fire pit and a jacuzzi and a pool. And I ended up leasing the house that was in the photo.
All right.
There was another house on my vision board also that was this Mediterranean style house, and I kind of forgot about it when I moved to Palm Springs. I kind of got into the whole modern style thing, and I had this mid-century house that I was in for a while, and then I realized I didn't want to live in a mid-century modern house anymore
Mm.
for multiple reasons. It was a older house, very leaky, very huge electric bills, all that sort of thing, and now I look at the house that we just remodeled this year, and I look back at some of those pictures of the Mediterranean homes, and I realize this is the Mediterranean house. It's not the exact house that was on the vision board, but this is that style and that vibe of house, and I didn't even think about it, and here I am living in it right now.
Yeah.
So your vision board can become very precise. It's the less
Yeah.
conditions we place on it, you can
Yeah.
get really precise with it. You're right. It's just
Right.
amazing our ability to, because we're
Right.
creating that thing, and it doesn't seem like it because it seems like, well, it was always there and it was something that I wanted and I found my way to it, getting it. But really, we're consciously creating our reality, and it
Right.
seems out there, I know, to say that, and I don't think you have to get too deep into worrying about that. More into the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of this is how creation occurs. you
Mm.
you don't need things, you don't hammer things. Cheryl asked earlier, and I meant to address that
Yeah.
question. When we
Yeah.
talk about hammering, we're talking about when you are so intently trying to manifest something that really the vibration that you're broadcasting is it's not here.
I feel like the nature of the question is like, the question is, so it isn't hammering when you replay and change scenarios in your mind about what you're trying to manifest. And I guess the question for me is like,
Well, it's the opposite
why
of
are you
trusting.
changing? Hmm?
Yeah, it's not trusting. Like if you,
Well,
whatever your instrument was, you set it and forget it, and that created enough trust because the stream. And I was channeling the other day. The
yeah,
stream said, and this makes perfect sense. Your ego creates your desires. Your ego is
right,
having the human journey. That's why we're not, getting rid of our ego. We're just detuning it.
right,
Our
right.
our ego creates our preferences, our desires while we're in this physical experience.
Mhm.
Your soul is eternal. That
Yeah,
source version of you is always in you. It's eternal, and you don't have to tell it twice.
right.
It's an all-knowing, all-seeing energy that exists in all of us, but we operate in this human matrix of ego that really tells us to ignore that it isn't real, and that 3D work and reality and hard work and exchange and return on all of that stuff, that's what we have to focus on, and that's what creates the anxiety in our world, and that's what creates really all of our suffering, is because we're taught to judge the human experience instead of appreciate every aspect of it. So the hammering thing is, it's the opposite of trust. Tya stands for trust your abundance. So when you're
Yeah,
thinking about things at different times, different vibrational set points, trying to figure out how it's going to work, how you're going to manifest it, how you're going to quote unquote make it happen, that is indeed hammering,
right.
because you're not trusting, you're picking up the hammer.
I mean, I think it's, if we're changing the scenarios because it's kind of fun to play with the different possibilities, I think that's a different thing. So I guess Cheryl,
Different
the
than
question is, like, why are
renegotiating.
you
Yeah, I
changing?
call it renegotiating.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what I'm wondering with Cheryl's question. Is that a renegotiation or is that a playful exploration of the manifestation? To me, those are different things.
I think I'm reading her question again.
Or yeah.
Change scenarios in your mind about what you're trying to manifest. Yeah, I think you're right that
Why are we
if you're
changing
if
this
you're just
scenario?
kind of, wouldn't it be nice, and then there's something that's a little different, well, that would be nice too.
Yeah.
Or I could live in the Italian countryside, or I could live in the French countryside.
Yeah.
Both seem really appealing.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be nice? And wouldn't that be nice too? I think that you can create a scenario for yourself where you set that, forget it, wouldn't it be nice? And you're going to manifest something like that.
Right. I guess Cheryl, the question that maybe you might consider exploring is, why are you changing the scenario? Is that out of a playful, fun exploration, or is that out of a need to thread the needle? And if one of those is, maybe that's the question you might want to just explore. That's
Yeah.
how I see it, at
Well,
least.
and using the analogy of moving to a different country and living, on the sea, which is something that I maybe if I do another vision board will be that. Um, Renegotiating is, I would love to live, for example, Italian countryside, and then your vibration drops a little bit and your ego kicks in a little more. But wait a minute, I heard it's really expensive, or it's dangerous, or it's
Yeah.
difficult to immigrate there. And what about a different country? What about
Visas.
Spain instead? Well, that's a
Yeah.
renegotiation based on you trying to reason instead of just letting the unit, getting out of the way of the universe and letting things really manifest for you.
Right.
Because we all hear stories of people manifesting things very magically. My life has been a whole series of that, things manifesting that weren't supposed to happen that way. Oh, that's not the way that's supposed to work. That's not the order of things in the matrix. And I was really guided to not listen to the matrix early on. And a lot of my life has been not listening to the matrix, allowing the magical things to just show up,
Mhm.
and defying logic for sure.
Right. Um, I I had a tangent. You mentioned before about how like putting the detail in your manifestations, and it was something that occurred to me about this musical instrument I've kind of manifested was I kind of also manifested the fair price that I had sort of pictured in my mind. And now that I go back in hindsight, I was like, maybe I should have changed that price. Maybe I should have like got it, imagined it for free. But then that kind of raised another rabbit hole in my mind of like, would I have believed it as well?
Well, and get into why does it need to be free?
Exactly.
If
Is
you're an
that a lack
abundant
also?
being, things don't have to be free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really is.
So,
It's taking the whole money.
yeah.
Because we have this system of exchange, and money is not good nor evil. We talk about that quite a bit. It's a tool, and if you kind of take the money out of it, take the money out of it, because really the money doesn't mean a whole lot other than what it can do for you in terms of buying experiences and goods and things like that. So focus on what you want the money to do. Focus on the result that you want
Yeah.
to occur, and be in the isness of that. The wouldn't it be nice,
Mhm.
kind of just reveling in that when you're in your higher vibrational state without the need to go in and try to hammer that thing into being. And don't get into the, well, how am I going to pay for that? How is that going to work? That's the renegotiation that happens. And that's why we really guide you away in the practice from trying to do affirmations every day,
Right.
because unless you're very aware of your vibrational set point and you know that you're going in only at the highest vibration, you're going to create static in that signal, and you're going to really push something away in a lot of cases. And we do that. We all do that on different levels.
Yeah.
There's things that we really want. I've got a list of wouldn't it be nice that hasn't shown up yet, and I've got a lot of things that has shown up magically, and the things that haven't shown up yet, I don't really think about it much anymore. But when I used to think about it more, I realized, well, I'm not ready for it. I'm not really prepared for this thing to arrive. There's something in the back of my mind still keeping it at bay, because that's how creation works. The universal process of creation is brilliant, because it keeps us from over manifesting, if you will, in most cases. And then if we do slip into a pocket of over manifestation, usually a correction is going to occur that's going to sort of bring us back to center. We don't usually get destroyed by over manifesting in
Right.
most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's spot on. Any questions out there that the group has? I see a lot of comments and a lot of people chiming in. Cheryl, that sounds like
John said something about taking inspired action, and I we do talk about inspired action a lot, and I think a lot of people that talk about law of attraction, we've kind of really got more into law of attraction here than just Tya. But um, inspired is the key word. When you are on fire to do something and you're loving every minute of it, and you know that the result's going to be something that you appreciate no matter what it is, and you don't need a specific outcome. You know what inspiration feels like.
yeah,
I know what inspiration feels like, and I know what I've got to get this done feels like. And we live in a 3D reality where we're weaving in and out of both of those mindsets. But the more I go toward inspired action and the more I trust my abundance, the less I worry about what I've got to get done.
right. If it's something that's always struck me, and we're going into this law of attraction thing, is the action, the physical action is often left out of the equation. But there's a writer that you really might want to check out called Wallace Wattles, wrote a book called The Science of Getting Rich. And he has a whole chapter on action. And he actually is one of the few writers about this that I find actually blends that thought creation coupled with action. And I think it's really I can't remember exactly his instructions for it, but he was a writer from like 1910 or something. So this is going way back before this stuff even became, I don't even know if it's full on mainstream now. It's definitely more of a community on this topic now, but back then it would have been really fringe stuff. I mean, that was like, but his take on all of it is really fascinating. There's a lot of Tya stuff. He has 3 books: Science of Getting Rich, Science of Being Well, and The Science of Being Great. And he talks a lot about holding the vision of the higher idea of you, and then taking what he calls complete action, or yeah. So it's cool. Check out his book. I think it's public domain now, so you should be able to download it for free. It's like out there, so you don't have, or you can go buy
Yeah,
it.
I think humanity has always innately known that we create our own reality. I definitely think we created a matrix of belief systems that sort of held us away from that.
Yeah.
Religion was a big part of that. Government sort of was, an offshoot of religion, really, and still is. And we have been told over and over and over again that it's hard work, it's working for somebody else, it's kind of getting into this maze of creation and doing what we tell you to do, essentially. And I'm not here to put that stuff down. That brought humanity along to this place to where I think we're more sophisticated now, so sophisticated that we see younger and younger generations not paying attention to that stuff at all, questioning everything and anything. And I love that. But I also acknowledge that the reason the younger generations are able to do that is because the generations that came before them became more sophisticated. Every generation became a more sophisticated version than the one prior. And our ability to communicate via the internet has really blown all that up. And that's what's going on our planet right now. Is we're becoming wiser. We're coming to understand that our mindset does create our reality. This isn't new. This has been going on for years and years and years. And we all know that we create our reality. I believe everybody at their core understands that, but I think it can be very frustrating because we're so bound in the matrix of you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to look a certain way and be a certain way. And and I always talk about the things that we're told are wrong that we should judge and avoid. And two of the biggest ones are aging and death.
Right.
We really, really, really are terrified of aging in this culture. Everything's age defying. You've got to look younger and be younger, and you want to be 20 when you're 50, and all of this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with any path, but just think about what that does when we have this matrix that instills fear of what is really inevitable for us.
Yeah.
Unless we die young, we're going to age, and we're going to ultimately cross over back to what I call the energetic realm. And when you've got that fear of dying and fear of aging, you are automatically lowering your vibration.
Yeah.
If you go take that training I was talking about at the beginning of this training on YouTube about the the numeric vibrational spiral, we talk about -5 being below neutral and -5, and we label that vibration compliancy. At -5, you're not suffering a lot, but you're anxious. There's anxiety present. You're in get it done mode. I've got to get it done. I've got to pay all the bills this month. I've got to get to work. Got to do the things that I don't want to do to get the things that I do want. And that's compliancy. That's -5, and most of humanity is operating around -5. And our intention with the Tya practice is to give humanity tools to move out of that -5 into +5, a more positive, more source aligned, creative space where we're not frightened, we're not anxious, we're not terrified of what might happen, we're not judging ourselves for aging or nearing death, we're not fearing the death process anymore, because those things are just part of 3D reality. And when you get above neutral, you're in new creation territory. You are source aligned up there. And your ego is still present. You still have preferences. Anytime you're discerning preferences, your ego is active, certainly, because I don't believe our source being has physical 3D preferences. I think our source being's preference or desire, if there is one, is expansion. Let's go and play in the physical realm to expand in the contrast of the physical experience.
The analogy that I came to the other day is like playing Super Mario Brothers, because Mario goes through the course and at some point Mario dies and starts over. And I kind of feel like when I'm playing Mario, I'm having fun. It's kind of like my soul playing this life. But if you look at the game from Mario's perspective, that must be absolutely terrifying. Like he's like falling down a pit and he doesn't know what's going to happen, and then he has a horrific death, and then he comes back at the beginning like nothing happened, no memory of that. So I kind of feel like we're Mario in a weird way, like that. And if we kind of just remember, like, oh yeah, I'm just Mario, and this is just another run through the game, maybe that takes some of the pressure off. I think.
Yeah, well, if you think about it from the eternal perspective, and the stream has even said that, our fiction And our video games are a reflection of the universal process of creation.
Yeah.
And if you think about ourselves as far as eternal strands of consciousness expressing in physical environments, yeah, you do get do-overs.
Right.
This life ends and another one is
Yeah.
happening simultaneously. We're expressing infinitely in physical environments
Yeah.
because that's how we expand in
Yeah.
that physical process of discerning preferences and overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
That creates expansion. The cool thing is that we can take that awareness and draw it into the life that we are perceiving right now, because
Yeah.
our ego is creating this experience for us where this is all that is in this moment to us. It's cool to think of ourselves as eternal, and yes, there's certainly more than just earth. We know that just through science, we know that, but
Yeah.
the focus is here. We are focused here. We may believe that we're communing, with beings from other planets and all of that. To me, I blanketly just call all of that stuff source, because it is all source, and we're comprehending through our human perspective because we're here on this human journey. We're supposed to be having the human experience, obviously. That's why we don't have full awareness of all of these other places and things like that. But projecting in and moving through the physical journey from an eternal perspective is a grain of sand.
Yeah.
And I think thinking that really takes the pressure off of our
Yeah.
lifetime.
Yeah. I think actually that John asked a good question I want to talk about, but I just want to piggyback off of that, because something you see in religion a lot is this fear of eternal damnation. Like, you mess up, you're going to go to hell. But if you stop and consider the absurdity of that, this life is, let's say you live to be 100 years old. Now, in terms of eternity, that's like a nanosecond. So
Right.
how is it that someone is judged for their behavior in one nanosecond, and that determines their eternal existence? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So to me, that sort of was what sort of refuted the whole idea of eternal damnation or eternal heaven as well, which I think is just as kind of an absurd idea too. But so I think if anyone has this fear of death, I think that's a way to sort of, at least from my rationally, sort of refute it a bit. But John has a good question. How do you know you are where you are supposed to be?
That's a
Any
very good
thoughts?
question. That's a good stream question, but I
Yeah,
have experienced it being answered enough to know that there's no supposed to.
yeah,
That's the beauty of the human experience. And I know that there are different belief systems out there. I think there's value in all of them. And I know there are belief systems around soul contracts and journeys, and that God has this plan and it's what you're supposed to be doing. I love when I channel, it becomes very, very clear that our physical journey is a journey of chance, that we are here aligning with a set of circumstances with an intention of expansion from our soul perspective. And that expansion is going to be created in our creation of our physical journey. And really, our physical journey is our point of entry, which we align with based on the type of experience that we're seeking. Are we seeking to make it very simple, a real high stakes experience? Are we going to be projected into being born to a 15-year-old mother, or into illness or poverty, or a really abusive situation? That's guaranteeing more contrast, or likely to guarantee more contrast right off the bat, right? Whereas if we pick the easy parents, the doting, loving, financially secure, healthy family, we get into this experience, and we can have a very linear, not very eventful life journey, or we can create our own obstacles as we go. Hey, mom and dad are fantastic. They've given me everything. I'm going to become a drug addict now. And I'm going to
right,
OD
right,
at 18, and that's going to be my life journey.
right,
From the eternal perspective, that is as valued and appreciated as someone living to be 100 that serves humanity for most of those 100 years.
yeah,
But from a human perspective, we want to judge and measure. And like you said, we want to judge this little grain of sand experience,
yeah,
by our grain of sand standards.
right,
But eternally, this is just a little weekend trip.
yeah,
It's no big deal. There's no right or wrong way to operate it, because whatever we experience is what we create. And the creation of the experience is the expansion that our soul seeks. So there's no right or wrong activity from
Yeah.
source perspective. That's why there's no judgment from source. So that whole concept of religion is really backward of source and universal creation. And I
Yeah.
do think more and more people are coming to understand that. Okay, you've got a set of rules, and I've got to live by that. And if I don't live by these rules that some dude wrote a couple of hundred years ago, or maybe even a couple of thousand years ago, usually a couple of hundred years ago, if you think about it, then I'm going to be damned to hell. But this person over here in this building has a different set of rules.
Yeah.
That was a big. I questioned religion very early on. I got kicked out of Sunday school in the fourth grade, but
Yeah, me too.
I remember nothing really made me finally close the door on it.
Yeah.
I was dating a girl, believe it or not. The last girl I dated was Muslim. She was Iranian, beautiful, beautiful girl
Okay.
from Iran.
Okay.
I lived in Atlanta, and we very platonically dated for a bit. She was betrothed to somebody else from an arranged marriage, and I was gay, so it was never going to work out. But
Okay.
I was dating this girl, and I really liked her. I really was really fond of her, and I was very impressed with her, and we really got along well. And I remember telling my brother about her, and my brother was like, "Well, if she's Muslim, she's going to go to hell." And I said, "Well, she was born into a culture and a country that is nothing but that. This is what she's been told. So you're telling me that entire culture and that entire country is burning
Yeah.
in hell because they don't believe what?" Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the last time my brother and I ever discussed religion. That was,
Yeah.
that was 30 something years ago.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, how narrow minded is that to think that you have this creator that you call God that's placing people on this planet, and oh, sorry, wrong country,
Yeah.
you're going to burn in hell.
I was watching on the flight back from Europe. I was watching Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. In the very beginning, he runs out of the cave, and all the people have left. He says, "Everyone's lost but me," and I love that line. It's like everyone's lost but me. It's like that's to me sums up religion. I think most organized religion.
Very ego driven. To bring it back around, though, I will, let's be. We're living in duality, so there's positive and negative in
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So the positive of religion is it gives people a social structure and a framework to operate their lives, and it gives you a belief system that we all need. We need a belief system, and there is hope woven into that belief system.
Yeah.
But people are questioning it more and more and more. Something that I do notice, though, is that when people denounce religion, they end up a lot of times turning around and making something else their new
Yeah.
god. Money, consumerism,
Yeah.
politics. Gosh, a lot of people have made politics their god now because there's so much
Yeah.
fear woven into what's happening
Yeah.
politically. That's your god. If that's your
Yeah.
belief system, that who wins the election in Georgia, is everything riding on this. How many times have we heard that in politics? Everything, this is the most
Yeah.
important ever. Oh my
We've
gosh.
been teetering on
And
the knife's edge for
it
2
is
decades
becoming
now.
more divided and more
Yeah. Yeah.
contrasting because
Yeah.
the matrix is really doubling down on all that stuff now.
Yeah.
But we get to choose how much power we give to it. That's the beauty of all this, is that yes, we're creating our reality, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy or politics or in your country or your family or whatever, unless you choose to give it power. And there's nothing wrong with choosing to give that stuff power. That's just the experience that you're creating. What I want to teach everyone is, hey, you're giving it power. And if you choose to do that, it's fine. But just understand that you're the one that's giving it the power. And if you want to really pay attention to politics and make that your thing, and that's your belief system, that whoever's in charge of your nation or a nation, in the United States, we have this unique thing where we really don't pay attention to other things going on externally in other countries as much. Whereas people that I know in other countries pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the United States.
Yeah.
They're all like my friend Matt in Australia. I have European friends. They all know our politics. I couldn't begin to tell you about politics in those countries. I think we very much think we're the center of the universe in the United States. We're taught to think that for sure. And I think most people in this country think that. And I think that people that are paying attention to US politics sort of think that too. That what the United States is doing impacts the world, and we all need to pay attention to it. And I know it's very easy to watch the news and think that that's true, but you really have to focus on your own individual personal world. And I always talk about I'll be 55 in 2 months, and I think I've lived enough life now to I've had enough experience to where I've faced that swinging pendulum of politics. I faced recessions. We had a major recession in my adult lifetime, certainly in my 40s, and I chose in those moments not to give that power, and it did not impact me personally.
Mhm.
Where we get tripped up, and this is another Tya tool, is when we think we have to be concerned about other people's experiences,
Right.
because the matrix teaches us that. Well, you may have been fine, but most of the world suffered. Well, the world is always a place of duality, of triumph and suffering, no matter what. And it's very egocentric, if you think about it, to believe that I somehow have the power to control someone else's suffering.
Mhm.
So let's
Yeah.
chew on that in the last 12 minutes. If you have questions about Taya or
Yeah.
any of this stuff,
Well,
or comments, or if you disagree, it's fine. Type that in.
John made a comment about path of least resistance. Any truth to that? And I'm assuming that's still on the
That's
top.
very Abraham-esque, and we can talk about Abraham stuff. It's
Yeah.
very
Um,
much we're kind of talking about the same things in different ways.
but
The path of least resistance,
what?
that's going
Yeah.
to me. That's just not hammering, going with the flow, allowing the universal process of creation just to do what it does.
Yeah.
What I call that, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it
Yeah.
be nice? And leaving it at that. And then the path of least resistance being, why do I need to make this happen? And why do I need to happen by tomorrow?
Right.
And all of that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to like, well, kind of again that question before about where are we supposed to be, and understand that there probably is not really any supposed to at all. But there's also preference, and you could look at your situation and say, oh, well, I like aspects of this, or I dislike aspects of this. But this is where it's sort of, I guess, the whole tie thing kind of turns on its head in a very, very weird way. That when you get to detuning something, you no longer see it as bad, and even like the stuff that you don't like, you still kind of see the value in it, if that makes sense. So it becomes, so the question of like, is it supposed to be, or even like choosing a path of least resistance of like, I'm kind of good at this one skill and I'm going to make a vocation doing that because it's what I'm naturally good at, as opposed to I want to do this even maybe I'm not good at it. You could, either path is okay. It's a matter of like, which would you rather do? You might have to, one might have to build more skill there. Like, I'm not a good at like sports, so if I was going to try to be an athlete, I'd probably have a lot of work cut out for myself. But at the same time, I also don't really want to be an athlete. So I don't know. It's sort of all a bit the I could sort of see where like, like the stream made a comment in the Sunday event that they're the anti Matrix, and I can sort of see that like. And I haven't really. I have to go back and listen to it again and digest more of that, because I was, there's a lot there. I think there was kind of new stuff that kind of came up, but it sort of like becomes this big contradiction where you don't judge anything anymore. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like when you stop judging it, there's no more good or bad, and then I don't know, nothing's wrong then. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
hard to.
well, the releasing of judgment is a huge undertaking, which is a big part of our practice, of course, but it's a huge undertaking for most people because we're taught to judge and fear everything,
Yeah, yeah,
including the experience of other people. They
yeah,
shouldn't be suffering. I have to vote for this person because that person's going to lead to the end of the suffering. And then, of course, if you get into politics, I'm not going to harp anymore on politics, but we know that either side in politics tends to make a lot of promises that are never kept. I'm
yeah,
going to solve the problems for this group of people, vote for me. And then, once your vote is there and they're secure, they go on about some different agenda, but I
right.
digress. So that the idea that we're supposed to end the suffering of others, when
Yeah,
suffering, first of all, suffering is a conscious creation.
yeah, yeah,
We are consciously creating our suffering. And when you step into the power of understanding that there is no prescribed path, that you're creating it, you're doing it all, you're creating your obstacles, which is cool because then you have the power then to solve your obstacles when you claim ownership of them. And then when you really get into the practice, you start really realizing how we create our own suffering. And that in the detuning of judgment systematically, as we do, you detune your suffering.
yeah,
And it's that label of this shouldn't be that we place on things. And anytime I find myself feeling below neutral, and I feel that I don't feel it much, but that suffering energy, there's
yeah,
always judgment at the root of that. And beneath that judgment, there's always some fear that I have learned. And when I detune that stuff, the suffering ends.
right. Yeah.
It's really quite magical to end your suffering, your own suffering. And then you can actually, and this is going to be crazy for anyone that's new to these teachings, you can find appreciation for the suffering of others
Yeah.
because it's just the experience they're creating for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. My since I did the modules, like my perspective on a lot of world stuff has shifted. So I see like stuff in the news that would have really
Hmm.
upset me before, and now I see, well, I mean, I don't particularly enjoy it. I'm not like happy about it, but at the same time, like,
Yeah,
well, that's really
appreciation
what
is not
I want.
celebration.
Yeah,
Appreciation is deep understanding. I want to point that out. John, we'll wrap up on this. John says, "Yes, we're getting deep. I can't help but get deep. I love the deep end. Sorry, I'll drag you right down to the deep end with me." Um, you are creating a way to reduce suffering by teaching Taya. I will tell you, John, you've known me for a long time and you've watched our videos for years now, really since the beginning. Something that I've changed in my own process is that I have detached my ego from needing people to have a specific experience in Taya. That was a lot of work for me to do that
mm,
because I created it. I saw what it did
mm,
for myself, and I quit my job and did all these things to go out and share the stream with the world and share Taya with the world, and created a whole academy around all that stuff. And there was a time where I just wanted everyone to get it. I really wanted everyone to understand Taya, and I want to share Taya with the world. I still love it. I love people like David who goes through boot camp, keeps going with the practice, and I am very happy for him that he's continuing to see expansive results from it. But I have released the need for anyone to have a specific experience in Taya or practicing it because that was just my own ego stuff. And so I've had to detune that.
yeah. And at the end of the day, once you finish the modules, like for me, I kind of realized, okay, now it's sort of for me to do with it what I want to. And I mean, I continued with it because of all the stuff I've encountered over the years. So the one that sort of makes sense to me on a fundamental level, and so that's why, but there's nothing exclusive about it. Like it's the same. Like I was talking about this Wallace Waddles book. I can go back and read that and see the Taya in that. Just it's because it's why I've never got hung up on religion in my life. Because to me, I drew a huge line between religion and spirituality. And to me, religion is a human created construct, and spirituality is our connection to our higher self or God or whatever that
Yeah,
is.
well, spirituality is a big tent, and it can be that. But I also found a lot of rules and judgment in spirituality, also. But
Yeah,
that's it's a big tent, just like religion's a big tent. You've got all sorts of different religions.
yeah.
Spirituality can be like that too. And there's times that with the streams teachings in Taya, I almost feel like it's is it more scientific than spiritual?
All right. Well, it gets
Well, we're
blurry
talking about the
because,
energetic realm. So
yeah, I mean, science is like, I've read a bit about some like quantum mechanics, and there's actually some uncanny Taya stuff going on in the scientific community, and like how, uh, well, I mean, just all atomic particles essentially a vibration. I mean, an atom is like 99.9% empty space.
yeah, and it's
You
it's too
know,
bad that I'm not more scientific because I know that I am shown things from the stream
right,
that science would help me describe in
right,
ways that people could maybe understand it better. But I kind of also like keeping everything very simple because science can be very out there for people and
right.
get very confusing for people.
Yeah.
Um, John, we're about to wrap up, but John said, asked one more question that I do want to answer. What was my intention in creating Taya? Um, Really, over the decade, when I really started understanding what the stream was, and really, I understood law of attraction very early on, and that we create with our minds. But other law of attraction teachings for me, because in the beginning it was like music to my brain, right? Oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is what I've known all along, and now it's confirmed. Then it's got a name. I always joke about I thought I invented law of attraction when I was a teenager. I remember telling my brother in 1982, I've got this cool thing where if you think of things, they just happen and they come up. And I didn't know what it was called, but I thought it was something I sort of created. And then I quickly realized, okay, there's books about this stuff and people have known about it forever. But the decade of my 40s was a time of transformation for me because even though I understood law of attraction, I didn't fully accept my vibrational journey. I had a lot of transgressors in my life. My 30s was a very tumultuous decade, and I wanted to go deeper within to solve that stuff. And that's really what the stream is my own inner source connection. or source being, I should say. I don't like to say connection anymore. And I solved and manifested really everything people want to solve and manifest in that decade. And in doing so, I kind of cracked the code. And so at the end of my 40s, decided I'm going to share this with the world. I just could not share it anymore. And I was in a corporate situation where I was in charge of commission salespeople, and I was using the process of creation to teach them to be successful in their jobs, which made me successful. And that worked very well to a point, because then they would be suffering in other areas of their lives. Like if a interior designer was having a bad month and I had to go, meet with somebody over their numbers, you would always hear about what was going on in their personal lives. And I couldn't help them there. That's not allowed in the corporate world. I couldn't talk about that stuff. And I wish I could. So that's when I started the podcast. And that's when I really started speaking. I'd started writing the stream years prior to that, but I taught myself to speak the stream. And I started the podcast. That was the first time I channeled. And my intention was to share the universal process of creation in such a way that it was easy to understand, not saying things that were confusing, or telling part of the story, which I found that a lot in law of attraction teachings. It really is focused on that attraction piece and not on the vibrational journey, not on appreciation, not on detuning transgressors. I'm like, wait a minute, that's great, but there's all this other stuff over here. And I came to realize, and somewhat cynically, that okay, the you're going to get rich if you think this way piece, that sells lots of books and seminars and stuff like that, and it still does. I get that, and that's the experience they're all having, and that's cool. But for me, I wanted to love myself more. I wanted to detune transgressors. I already figured out how to manifest the stuff, and the stuff didn't do for me what I thought it was going to do. So that's what I wanted to focus on, and I created this mindset that I wanted to teach. It didn't become Tya until I started the podcast, quit my job, and I started trying to teach these things online. And then boom, it just happened. I can't even tell you, it just happened that there was a course, there was 4 pillars, and it was called Tya, and it just suddenly came into being, and it's been that ever since. And over the 5-6 years since I created this, 5 years, I guess, I have kind of wavered a little bit in my journey of, oh, maybe we should bring in this. For a little while, we brought in shadow work. That was so sexy, shadow work. And every time I try to bring something external in, I realize that I sully it. It's not pure anymore. And I've stopped doing that. I quit doing that a couple of years ago. The 4 pillars of Tya authentically deliver everything that we need for an amazing vibrational journey, and thus an amazing life experience. And that's what I'll teach until I can't anymore. So that's why I created Tya. Gives people the tools to change their lives and live in a life of joy, clarity, and abundance. Absolutely. Do I need them to have that outcome? No, I don't. It makes your life better. Even if it makes your life a little bit better, then that does make me happy. But I don't need that from people anymore. That's what I've really changed this year, and kind of my inner work that I've done. David, thank you so much. You have anything to close on?
No, it was good seeing you. Thanks everyone for leaving the comments. And
yeah, good comments today, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you all.
A lot of people. So.
All right. Well, we're on Patreon every single week. So if you go to the Stream of David podcast, if you like the podcast and you want to join Patreon, the cool thing about Patreon, you join, you like it, you stay there. You don't like it, you don't have to stay there. I love that about it, because it's all vibrational. But we do a lot of live videos and live training. We have several different levels of Patreon that you can subscribe to, depending on how deep you want to go into these teachings. But check it out. If you like the podcast, check out our Patreon. We do a little extra coaching. We do these Tya Talks every Wednesday over there. We do a Thursday night show over there. We do Sunday Soul Food, which is just channeling. It's really a cool place. And I do love popping on everywhere sometimes and just sharing this stuff with everybody. And it was good having all these new people on today. So thank you all for watching. Dave, thank you again. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, it's still the Thursday night thing. Is Debbie G still doing that?
Now Debbie is taking some time off. I'm now doing it with Stacy, lead Tya coach Stacy. We have lots of fun. So now that is Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific. Right. And sometimes it's channeling. Sometimes it's just talking about Tya, our current events, and how we're managing them with our practice. Okay. It's a really fun, upbeat hour. Where Tya Talk, this show, is more specifically Tya tools. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Thanks for mentioning that, pointing it out. We did change the time. So I hope to
Okay.
see you all over there, and check out the podcast if you're new to these teachings, and check out the YouTube channel. There's lots of information on there. Thank you all.